Like, why was it the case that we were able to build Facebook and that some other company didn't? Right? It's actually a lot easier to predict where things are going to be in the world like 5 or 10 years from now. It's fun, but it's also quite frenetic about building a startup, and like the payoff is pretty big. It's like I get to punch someone else in the face. And it's like, I don't know, large companies are slow and they lack conviction. And I think is one of the advantages, I think, of being a kind of founder-driven large company. But one of the kind of things that I've thought about from time to time is, like, why was it the case that we were able to build Facebook and that some other company didn't, right? It wasn't like it was a super novel idea, right? I mean, there was Friendster before, there was MySpace, there's all this stuff. Google, Microsoft, Yahoo, they all like had versions of it. Why didn't they do it? And I think it's like, I mean, we kind of watched them, right? In the early days,
Yeah.
It's like fumbling around, and it's not that they had a lack of talent, right? I mean, we were like a ragtag group of children, right? It's like, and they had like all these like, so I do think that, like, even for the things that look like they belong to large companies as opportunities because they have a big distribution advantage, I would guess that big companies are going to fumble 2/3 of those, right? And then there are all these things where there is not an apparent new advantage, like big advantage, because it plugs into an existing distribution channel, and those are just kind of free and kind of open to take. Like when I was in college, before I built the first version of Facebook, which I didn't think was going to be a big company, by the way. I mean, it's do you remember when, like, I mean, when Dustin and I first came out, we basically, I started Facebook. He joined me because I was still taking all these classes and I was like locked away in the computer science dungeon and like
PHP.
doing my problem sets and didn't have cell phone receptions when like the site went down. Like it was just like, oh, I just like get out from doing a problem set. It's like, oh, site's been down for a while. That sucks. But honestly, it's like, so I really believe in this approach of just like, you want to build different stuff and not get committed too quickly. I think especially when you're a startup, right? Because I think when you're bigger and you can have, it's actually a lot easier to predict where things are going to be in the world like 5 or 10 years from now than it is to know like what is your wedge to get there. I think that's like the really hard thing to figure out. So I don't know. I mean, there's different styles on this. Some people have succeeded by just saying, I want to go build a startup. I'm going to like go hit my head against the wall until I get this to work. But I've always much more believed in like, just go build a lot of stuff that is like thematically interesting, and like you'll learn different things from it, and try to not get too committed too quickly, because it's actually pretty hard to learn and fully kind of pivot through the space of things that you need to go do. So at the scale of what we're doing now, I think that's one of the things that's fun, but it's also quite frenetic about building a startup. And you do kind of always feel like you bounce between euphoria and like feeling like you're about to die pretty frequently. I don't miss that.
It's tiring. It's tiring.
I don't think I could do that again. Like I was just talking about how the cycles are very long when you're running a bigger company, especially when you're doing hardware, right? Or it's like you're training like some foundation model. It's like, all right, we'll like go work on this for 9 months, and then like, okay. So there is something that's nice in a bounded way about being like, all right, I need to focus on this or else I'm just literally gonna get punched in the face.
Yes.
And like the payoff is pretty big. It's like I get to punch someone else in the face. And it's like, it's like they'll never let me do that in the office anymore.
Back in 2014, we were still kind of in the AI winter. I think that. So, what were some of the seeds that you were trying to plant, maybe back in the -1 to 0 days of Fair?
Yeah. So after, I guess like around 2012, so that was when we went public and Facebook reached 1 billion people, and I was kind of trying to figure out like what's next, right? Because obviously Facebook goes on to scale something separate. It was almost like we needed this separate seed of a thing to kind of go incubate it, to even get like our culture to accept that it was going to be a thing, even though I'd kind of decided, I'm like, no, we're doing this, right? But so we kind of started the AI thing with Fair. I did want to buy DeepMind, but they went to Google. But yeah, so we kind of did it ourselves, and I guess because we didn't end up having this closed lab, we ended up getting all these academic folks.
Yep.
And that sort of laid the foundation for like the kind of philosophical approach being like overwhelmingly open source in the work. And we'd done that with a bunch of other stuff at Meta, Facebook at the time, but the AI stuff I think especially was like really like it was kind of academic, open. Jan LeCun, right? Like a bunch of the kind of foundations that do that. But I think the good news is that that hopefully will be somewhat of a commodity over time, right? And I'm not sure that that's where most of the value is going to be. Whereas what you can build on top of that, I just think like all these different categories of things are going to get built. I mean, I look at like every part of what we do is going to get changed in some way, right? Feeds are going to go from, it was already friend content, and now it's like largely creators. And in the future, a lot of it is going to be AI generated. Ads are going from like advertisers targeting stuff to now it's like an advertiser's just going to give us a business objective that they want, and we're going to like produce the creative for them and find the people. It's just kind of wild, right? I mean, all the metaverse stuff, it's like you go from like having all these developers building out these worlds to it just being more generated, almost like a dream. Like a lucid dream as you're kind of like walking through it. It's just gonna be wild. So there's gonna be all this stuff. Like you can point to almost any product experience that's out there, and I think that they'll change.